sent out. Awesome. Well, welcome to Marine Biology. This is our last week of Marine Biology. Unfortunately, we are going to end this week, but I have had a great time with this class. So here we are in week 9. We are going to do lots this week. We have a very jam-packed hour here. We are going to share our marine organisms that y'all sent in to me. And we are going to talk about the beach and the ecosystem on beaches. Hopefully we are going to share with each other about some beaches that we have been to and how they are different in different parts of the country. We have people from all over. I'm up in Connecticut. We have some people from down south, and we have some people from out west. We also have another video to watch. We're going to do that right now, Haley. We also have another video to watch that Haley had made about turtles that I could not get to upload last week. So we actually are going to start with that today. So, in order to watch videos, what I need everybody to do is we are going to start on the whiteboard. You are going to click on the purple toolbar that says Applications. And then you should see an icon or a bolded word that says Haley. Do not click on it yet. Can you see the bold Haley? All right, Brayden, thank you for joining us. We are going to go to your whiteboard. Across the purple toolbar across the top, click on the Applications. All right, ready, Brayden and Mallory? Go ahead and follow these steps. Look at your whiteboard. Right above your whiteboard, there is a purple toolbar. On the purple toolbar, there is an icon. The second icon says Applications. Click that. Now you should see the bold word Haley. Okay, do you see? Ooh, Haley now. Okay, go ahead and click yes, Brayden and Mallory. I know the rest, Haley and Victoria, I know you can see it. All right, perfect. So I turned my video off. You guys are going to go ahead and watch this video, and then we will be back in class. All right, perfect. Well, thank you, Haley, for sharing that cute little video about sea turtles with us. Those are definitely some ways to protect the sea turtles that are in the oceans around us. Braden, you wrote that you had a hard time with your homework. Do you have a picture of it? If you want, you can just share it with us. Sometimes Moodle can be a little tricky to get things uploaded. So that is an option that we can use today. What we are going to do is we are going to start with our first picture. And, all right, Braden. Perfect. When it is your turn, we will turn your camera on. So here we have, if you look on our whiteboard, Haley did a mountain seal. So Haley, why don't you go ahead and turn on your microphone and your camera if you want, and share with us about mountain seals. Okay, then you can just go ahead and click talk and share with us using your microphone. Make sure you click the talk button, Haley. I don't hear you yet. Sure thing. Haley asked if we could come back to her, so we can go ahead and do that. I will go ahead and put our next one up here. And let me see. The next one up here is Victoria's. So Victoria, go ahead and let me know. Would you like your camera on or no? All right, I'm turning your camera on. Click yes from your side. And then go ahead and tell us about your Lady Rainicorn. Oh, we can't hear you. We can't hear you, Victoria. You have to hit the talk button.
I got my idea from one of my favorite TV shows, and I made it into a marine animal of what I would think it is. So it's called the Lady Rainicorn, and for me, the Lady Rainicorn is a type of marine mammal and is related to sea cows and manatees. Some distinctive features about the rainicorn is they have a long, slender body that can swim like an eel. The rainicorn lives in tropical climates along the coast of California, Hawaii, Florida, and the Bahamas. They can be found in waters a bit from the coast and at the bottom of coral reefs and rivers. It eats with its slender nose to eat seaweed and other marine grasses off the ocean floor. Predators of the rainicorn are sharks, box jellyfish, and killer whales. And a special fact about the rainicorn is that they can eat trash without getting sick.
Awesome. So they are, along with many other things, they are also animals that can help keep our oceans clean. The lady rainicorn sounds like a great marine organism, marine mammal. Good job. The next one we have is the next one, let's see, does this one look familiar to anyone on the whiteboard? All right. I will go ahead and read this. I can't remember whose this is. My fish is called the hopperfish. The hopperfish is a cross between a fish and my... You can't see it on the whiteboard? Yeah, I think, Mallory, go ahead and click the little refresh button on yours. I think you may have a slow internet connection. So it says, my fish is called the hopperfish. The hopperfish is a cross between a fish and my favorite animal, the rabbit. She has long ears like fins in the front and two hind fins in the back. The fish can move in a way that makes it look like it is hopping. It lives in a coral reef, mostly in the tropics. It eats algae and is just big enough to add shrimp and small crabs in the picture. Perfect. All right, and Haley, you are ready now, so let me make this mountain seal up here again. All right, Haley, would you like your camera on? Go ahead and write yes or no in the text chat. All right, then go ahead and turn your mic on. You are ready to go.
Mountain seal is a very unique seal. It has a mountain lion head and body with the seal's flippers. It lives in all the oceans, every part of the world. It stalks its prey and lunges at it. It eats fish, and its only predator is the octopus. Some special facts about it are, it only feeds at night and does not eat or attack humans. Now you see how the mountain seal is very unique.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Great job. Okay, Brayden, now you said you have a picture. I will turn your microphone, your camera on so we can see the picture, and then you can turn your microphone on and share with us.
I made it eats small fish and coral and eats bananas. It lives in saltwater half of its life and then lands for the other half. My animal is very rare. It can swim and walk. I chose this animal because it's three of my favorite animals. The head is the dolphin. The body is a clownfish, and the tail and his flippers and his feet are a monkey.
Awesome. Great job. Thank you very much, Brayden. All right. Well, you guys did a great job making your own sea creatures. Fantastic. I'll turn my camera back on now. So we are going to talk about beaches today. Beaches are a unique marine ecosystem, partly because they are partly in the water and partly out of the water. There are lots of different organisms that live on beaches. So what we are going to do to start is I am unlocking your whiteboard. I would like you guys to list in this square some organisms you have seen on a beach. Now remember, organism can be an animal or it can be a plant. go ahead and we're going to take a minute and write organisms we have seen on the beach. Oh my, I think I need to make my square bigger here. We'll add another rectangle. You can write in either of these. You guys have so many ideas up here. We're looking for organisms you have seen on a beach. All right, guys, try not to erase anything. It looks like something just got erased. All right, make your last additions up here. Okay, so these look like some great organisms that you guys have seen up on the beach. Take a second and look over each other's lists. Okay, try to compare. Have you seen any of these animals? Have you not? And then we are going to go ahead and take a look at a PowerPoint that talks about all the different parts of a beach. All right, so take a look at your PowerPoint screen. I'm going to turn off our whiteboard. Now your PowerPoint screen says Life in the Tidal Zone. survival, and diversity. Tidal habitats. That's another way to say beach or coastal ecosystem. Tidal habitats are great places for organisms to live. There is lots of food. It says a high level of primary food production. Now go ahead and take a look out a window near where you are sitting. Out your window, you probably see grass or trees, bushes, a garden. What you are seeing are organisms that use photosynthesis to make food. Well, in an ocean, oh no, Mallory sees snow. Well, underneath all of that snow, maybe you would see something green. All of those green plants use the sun to make food. In the ocean, there are organisms that produce food as well. Now, there are some plants, but there are also small microscopic things called phytoplankton. There are lots of phytoplankton that live in tidal habitats. They are the basis for the food chain. Now, if you remember last week when we looked at the food chain and the food web of the polar ecosystem, we looked at organisms that were on the bottom, like the phytoplankton and the zooplankton, as well as animals that were on the top, like polar bears. Tidal waters don't have polar bears in them normally. However, they do still have that phytoplankton. The tidal waters are very nutrient rich. They have lots of nutrients from the rivers draining into the ocean and from something called upwelling. Upwelling is the replacement of deep cold water for surface water. So let's take a look at some adaptations of tidal zone animals. Would anyone like to volunteer to read this slide for me? All right. Oh boy, you all do. Okay. Mallory, you are going to go first. Go ahead.
Tidal zone of adaptation. Tidal habitats change daily with the tide, so organisms adapt. Adjust to changing environmental conditions with special features to avoid drying out, anchor themselves to resist waves, limpets protect themselves from predators, limpets shape the body, the shell, to fit a specific rock. Effective seal against water loss.
Okay, so I'm going to stop Mallory right there. There are lots of organisms in the tidal zone that have some very unique adaptations. One of those is what this top picture on the left is, and these are limpets. Limpets have a hard outer shell. Now, limpets attach themselves to rocks or pilings or other hard structures. These hard structures are sometimes underwater if it's high tide, and if it's low tide, they can be above water. So these limpets need to be able to protect themselves from drying out. The way they do this is they suction their shell to the rock, almost in the same way that you would put a suction cup on your window or on a mirror to hang something. They do that with their shell as the water or the tide is going lower. To the right, you see tube feet of a sea star. A sea star, the little hairs that are sticking out of its tube feet, or out of its arm, are called tube feet. They use these tube feet to move across the bottom of the ocean, and they have little suction cups on the bottom of the tube feet to hold onto rocks or pilings or anything hard. Raise your hand if you have seen a sea star before. Oh my goodness, all of you have. Okay, so Victoria, can you describe that sea star to us?
Yes, they are, depending on the sea star, they can be brightly colored on top and kind of rough like sandpaper, and underneath there's multiple suction cups and the little hairs, and if you pick them up, their arms curl up to where so they curl up towards their suction cups. Yeah.
All right, great job. Thank you very much. I'm going to ask you guys today to describe some of the organisms you have seen on beaches. On the bottom, we have some adaptations that organisms on the beach use to protect themselves from predators. Now, the first one on the left is a hermit crab. The hermit crab finds a shell that he can almost entirely fit inside of, and he uses this shell to protect himself from predators. And on the right-hand side, you have a pipefish. The nose or the mouth and eyes of this pipefish are at the bottom left of the picture. He is very thin. They're dark green, browny, blacky in color, and they camouflage themselves well in eelgrass beds. Can anybody come up with another example of an organism that uses camouflage on a beach? Brayden, go ahead. Make sure you hit your talk button, Brayden. Another organism that uses camouflage. Oh, why don't you go ahead and put it in the text chat then? And while you're typing, we will let Mallory share one with us.
Little white crabs can blend into the sand on beaches because they're, like, it depends on what type of crab. If it's a ghost crab, then it can blend into the sand from its color.
All right, perfect. Does anyone else have an example of an organism that uses camouflage? Haley, go ahead.
Ghost crabs use camouflage. They're like white and you can barely see them when you're walking on the beach.
Very good. Great job. So let's look at the two main different types of tidal habitats. We have sandy beaches on the left-hand side and rocky shores on the right-hand side. Anyone want to volunteer to read about the sandy beaches? Victoria, go ahead.
Types of tidal habitats. Different tidal habitats require different adaptations. Sandy beaches and mud flats, and then there's rocky shores. For sandy beaches and mud flats, substrate offers lots of nutrients, but little structure for attachment. Animals bury themselves in mud, can also attach to plants. For rocky shores, little protection from strong waves, animals must anchor. And they also have complex tidal pools possible. Seaweed offer protection from drying.
Awesome. So these are the two most common tidal habitats. We have sandy beaches with lots of spots for animals to hide or bury themselves. And on the other side, we have rocky shores. Rocky shores have or can have tidal pools in them. So when it's high tide, they're covered all the way with water and connected to the rest of the beach area. However, when it's low tide, these little pools of water become isolated. Victoria, do you have a question? Go ahead.
Yes, when most of the beaches I go to, they are very sandy, and then they have, like, it's two beaches connected, like it has the rocky shores and the sandy beach. So there's like a lot of, depending on if you're north or south of that coast, it can be very sandy or it can be very, very rocky, like a rocky shore.
Very nice. My guess is there is lots of different organisms there if there are both types of habitats. Go ahead, Mallory.
What kind of fish or animals or organisms can go inside of a tide pool?
Great question. Tide pools can have lots of different kinds of animals in them. There can be animals like starfish get caught in a tide pool. Basically what's happening is if you have high tide, all of those rocks would be covered by water. As the tide goes out or it becomes closer to low tide, water gets stuck in the between all the rocks and make these little pools. So these little pools can have starfish, sea anemones, crabs, snails, barnacles, sometimes little fish. Basically anything that you can find on the beach, you can find in the tide pool. Great question, Lizzie. A substrate is like the substrate of the sandy beach would be the sand. The substrate is what the bottom of something is made up of. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at the different zones of the tidal area. Now, the tidal habitat is divided into zones based on where it is located on the beach and how often that area is covered by water. So the top part, the splash zone, is an area that is not often covered by water. Then next on the beach, you have the high tide zone, then the middle tide zone, the low tide zone, and the subtidal zone. Here we have some information about a splash zone. Brayden, you have a question? Go right ahead. Sure, go ahead. If you'd like to read this slide, go ahead, Brayden.
Splash zone. High on beach, out of water most of the time. Species must tolerate salt, heat, cold, and extended dry periods, and low diversity.
Very good. So the splash zone is up on the beach. It's out of the water most of the time. Here are some organisms that can live in the splash zone. You can have lichen growing on trees. Trees can be in the splash zone. You can have isopods. You can have some blue-green algae up in the splash zone. You can have snails or periwinkles. You can have amphipods. You can also have deer and raccoons come into your splash zone. There are lots of birds that live in the splash zone. Next, we have the high tide zone. Someone who has not read yet. Would you like to read this one? Lizzie, go ahead.
Increased wave action. Species must survive exposure to drying. Tide pools provide some protection. Higher diversity includes some animals from splash zone and middle zone in tide pools.
Thank you very much. So here we have some animals who live in the high tide zone. We have limpets, who we talked about before, who suction cup themselves to rocks or other hard structures. We have some barnacles, who when they are covered by water at high tide, they expose their little feathery structures so that they can feed. And when it is low tide, they close themselves up. There are shore crabs. And there is rockweed, which is a type of plant. Can anyone else think of any organisms that may live in the high tide zone? All right, Mallory first, then Victoria.
Jellyfish can pop up in the high tide zone.
Very good. Jellyfish can certainly visit the high tide zone. Victoria?
I've seen some sea anemones cling onto rocks where they are just like a circle, and it's kind of like a donut looking thing, but I'm pretty sure it's a sea anemone. And also there can be jellyfish eggs, because I've seen a lot of jellyfish eggs wash up onto the shore.
Very nice. Brayden, I think I saw your hand up, and then Haley.
Horseshoe crabs.
Very good. And Haley?
Seals.
All right, perfect. Great job, guys. All right, now let's look at the middle tidal zone. The middle tidal zone is the most active region of our tidal zones. They're covered and uncovered by water twice a day. Life here must tolerate both submersion, which means being covered by water, and being exposed to the air. And the animals move in and out of this zone and the adjacent zones to eat. Some middle tidal zone life. We have a whelk. We have an anemone. We have sea stars, and we have mussels. Lots of these organisms will overlap the organisms in the high tide zone and the low tide zone. Would anyone like to read about the low tide zone? Mallory, go ahead.
Most diverse zone. More plants and animals in low tide zone than in all other zones combined. Most food and shelter. Less exposure to air and heat. Animals unable to exist in other zones.
All right, thank you very much. So the animals here have less exposure to the air. They're underwater most of the time, and are only above water when there is a very low tide. Mallory, you have a question?
Yes. Is the low tide the same as a tide pool? Like the same animals go in it and it gets covered in water, or did I just say the opposite of it?
No, most animals that live in a tide pool could live in the low tidal zone as well. It's just an area that's covered by water all the time. So now we have the subtidal zone. The subtidal zone is the area just below the intertidal zone. It is almost never, ever, ever, ever exposed to water. To the air. There are many consumer animals that prey on animals in the low tide areas. These life forms are much less tolerant to changes. They do not have adaptations that allow them to survive without water. So here are some organisms that would live in the subtidal zone. We have wolf eels, jellyfish, and octopus. Now, what we are going to do is go ahead and switch back to our whiteboard. I am going to attempt to draw a beach. And here is our beach. Okay, guys, try not to erase or move anything around up top for me, please, okay? Stop touching things. Okay, I don't want to have to turn you guys off. Please try not to touch anything up there. What we are going to do is in the beginning of class, you guys came up with some organisms that you have seen on a beach. Now that we have talked about some more organisms, on the beach, I would like you to go ahead, truly guys, and I would like you to add the organisms. I just went ahead and erased that since someone was helping me out. I would like you guys to place your organisms where they would go along the beach. Okay, please type them or write them. Do not just draw pictures on the whiteboard. Okay, I'm unlocking them again, but I will lock them if I need to. So go ahead and place organisms in the correct spots along the beach. For example, down here in the water, I could type dolphin. Up here, I may write deer. Go ahead, Victoria.
What about rocks on the beach? Because I know there's some animals that I have that go on rocks.
I can go ahead and add some rocks to the beach. Let me make them brown. If you're the person who seems like, who seems to be causing the issues on the whiteboard, if you could just stop writing on the whiteboard, that would be very helpful to me. Okay, and there's some rocks. Not very good ones, but there are some rocks for you. All right, well, we, unfortunately, it looks like, are not going to be able to write on the whiteboard. So, I have already shut you guys all off. What we will do is we'll look at what you guys have up here. Unfortunately, I'm not going to continue to ask people to stop that. So what we have up here right now is we have, starting up at the top, we have some deer. Or they could live up top. Raccoons could also live up top. Let's change my pencil here to red. We have starfish, very good. Crabs, hermit crabs, sand dollars, I'm guessing that means. Seals, sea dollars, sand dollars, I think. All of these organisms right here that I just circled in red can go anywhere in the intertidal zone. So anywhere from high tide to low tide. In the water, we have sea anemone fish eggs. We have dolphin, shark, and whales. Great job coming up with some good ideas about where different organisms would live on the beach. Wonderful. So, now the way I would like to starfish. Oh, starfish could definitely go up there too, Lizzie. Oh, there he is. He's finishing out over there. Now, what I would like to do is at the end of class, our last class, is I always like to talk a little bit about marine biology and what is important if you would like to pursue a job in marine biology. Now, I know lots of you are far away from that. However, it is always good to know. So how do I become a marine biologist? So let's see if we can come up with any ideas. Does anybody want to share any of their thoughts with me? Haley, go ahead. Haley first.
You could study it all through college and then like get a job with like a sea turtle center or a rehabilitation center.
Very good. Mallory.
You can go to college, to a certain college, and enter the college and graduate for 4 years.
All right, very good. Most marine biologists have a master's degree or PhD. Victoria, go ahead.
Well, if you want to become a marine biologist, you probably want to be familiar with animals, so you probably would want to go to beaches or SeaWorld or something like that, just to get familiar with the different organisms.
Very good. Brayden, go ahead.
At an aquarium and help out.
Very good. You can volunteer at an aquarium. Anyone else have it? Haley, go ahead.
You could scuba dive and learn about the different organisms by actually going into the ocean.
Very nice. Anyone else have anything they want to add? I have a few additions I would like to make up here. Study lots of math and science. Lots of marine biologists also do computer modeling, so learning how to use a computer is definitely important. Lots of marine biologists are also very good observers, so practice your observation skills. And I think the most important thing, no matter what you decide you would like to do, is to work and study hard to reach your goals. And I think this bottom one is the most important one up here. No matter what you decide to do, you need to make sure you work and study hard. So, great job. I am going to go ahead and turn on the whiteboards one more time. If you could please only write what I ask you. I'm going to make 2 boxes. Now remember, I cannot tell who is writing on the whiteboard. In the first box, I would like you to write what you liked about this class. And in the second box, I would like you to write what you would change. Once you have done so, we are done for the class. I really enjoyed having all of you here, and I hope that you enjoyed the class as well. Doing this little survey is